払え。火より暗い恐怖に沈め。
The story begins with a boy named Yukito, who desires a world without gods, but instead finds himself reincarnating with the ability to call upon the most powerful god. There was one obstacle in the way of Yukito's long-held desire to live a carefree and ordinary life. His life was made so miserable by his insane father, the founder of a new religion that preached for their goddess Matama, that they eventually coerced him into a ceremony that would make him the new cult leader. They carried Yukito, who was imprisoned inside a barrel while posing as the cult's disciples, and threw him into the water. The objective is for him to outlast death by spending 3 days submerged. Yukito naturally begs for his life, knowing that this is how he would die, but his father is unfazed and is convinced that this ceremony will rescue him. With the greatest amount of belief, the old guy raves about how his goddess is almighty, omniscient, and invincible. They push Yukito from the cliff and he falls into the water after he promises his son that their deity will undoubtedly save him. As he sinks further into the sea, his mind begins to send him flashbacks of past events. He recalls trying to act like a typical youngster, playing with animals and going for walks with friends, only to have his actions disturbed and taken away by members of the cult. The cult destroyed his life. Nobody wanted to be around him at school, so they made him endure alone. His father beat him severely, forcing him to summon the strength of a waterfall, and they nearly burned him to death in an attempt to literally kill him. He was never intended to live in lock and quiet, to put it simply. So he makes one last request as he gradually begins to fade away. He wishes to be reborn in a universe devoid of gods and religion if their goddess Matama is real. Fortunately, Yukito awakens after being rescued by Laurel, a young woman. She explains that she works at the town cafe and pledges to care for him until he is fully recovered. He doesn't initially comprehend it, but after taking a glance around, he understands that he is in a foreign planet. His wish to be reincarnated in another universe was realized. While she struggles to understand his more bold questions, he asks them right away. He wants a job, though after an explanation gives a thorough understanding. He chases after her, all fired up, contemplating wielding a sword in magic, but he settles for a job as a farmer. He gets angry. This mission is dull, and to make matters worse, Roy appears and claims that every lady in the community is her without ever identifying himself. Another main character syndrome individual. Fortunately, Clem stops the haphazard child and hands Yukito a dagger. The logical follow-up question is, where are the level 1 goblins? Of course, that doesn't happen. He is tasked with picking grapes, but he ends up picking too much and is unsure of what to do. Yukito makes the decision to create wine using a technique they weren't familiar with. He makes friends with everyone right away and keeps repeating what he believes to be his beginner farming missions. He eventually makes friends with the locals and moves in with Rule and Searle, her older sister. Yukito observes a villager rushing and yelling for everyone to flee one day while he is out farming. An enormous, evil animated beast follows him and turns to face him and Roy. Roy pulls out a book and encourages him to relax and leave everything to him. He opens it and starts removing a black magic spell from it. Yukito is ready to witness magic and is enthralled for the first time, but Roy's spell is titled, Yukito Run for Your Life. Roy is pleased that they narrowly managed to live, while Yukito is upset that they didn't even attempt to engage the beast in combat. It's embarrassing to run. He grabs Roy by the collar and chides him for not responding in kind. Roy, though, says that we cannot defeat it. Yukito becomes indignant and queries the reason behind his book reading. The book does, however, include tactics for avoiding certain beasts. Yukito ultimately understands there is no magic in this world after returning to the restaurant and receiving treatment for his injuries from Laurel. He still believes it's not too horrible, even though it's not the kind of rebirth life he had in mind. By the end of the day, he can at least become inebriated. Watch Roy hurl rainbows, make audible remarks about how everyone seemed happier after he arrived, then hesitantly request that he stay there permanently. As there is no demon king in this planet, he begins to adjust and come to terms with his new existence. He says that he ought to thank God for sending him there, but observes that no one has any knowledge of religion or spirituality. When Roy meets him when he is out hunting and tells him about the forbidden book, which is even illegal to discuss, he quickly believes that this is his chance. He will discover the secrets of this new planet as a result of this. To learn more, he inquires about the subject of the book. It is a typical book about romantic connection. Roy and Aur accompany Juito as he travels to the imperial capital. Yukito is warned not to speak to anyone from the city by Roy, who gestures to the palace. Yukito is perplexed as to why, and Roy describes their village to him. People in the city despise others. When they get to the bookstore, they discover the book they were looking for so frantically. Yukito starts to wonder what an inappropriate workbook from another universe would look like. Everyone panic out at how disgusting it appears, but Yukito thinks it's just a regular book. After she discovered a book that is more sophisticated than the one she presently owns, Laurel is the only one having fun. They notice a crowd as they turn around to go back. Ito decides to investigate after becoming overly curious. When the Imperial guards give them one order, the individuals behind them who are kneeling start to drink something before collapsing. He is startled and perplexed by what is happening. But Laurel reaches out and snatches him up. What was it? He queries of her. She then halts. She clarifies. The nation has a procedure in place to determine when to end someone's life. He freaks out once more since he has no idea what is going on. Roy interjects, stating that it couldn't because their town is unique and isn't treated the same, in response to his question on if they can be applied to them. The two men leave while Laurel follows behind them after learning that her sister's name is on the list of the next target while Yukito is trying to fall asleep. He is confused when Laurel enters his bed unexpectedly, but she has just read that in her latest book and wants to put it into practice. After tying him up and coming to her wits, she apologizes and says that she was brought to the hamlet because of the way she is. She discloses that the village is only an isolation camp for outcasts. She exposes her shoulder, showing a scar that has been marked. She reveals that everyone who has a fear of dying or disobeys the laws of the nation is stigmatized and sent to an isolation camp. She appreciates how unique Yukito is compared to the others, though. Despite the fact that he lacks a name brand, he nevertheless helps them and imparts knowledge to them. He is the first outsider to treat everyone with respect and like family. Yukito reveals that he has a comparable past. In a previous existence, because of the cult, he was despised by everyone, but this time he succeeded in making his first friends. Then Laurel sees his necklace and remarks that it is attractive. He only ever brought that into this planet, and recalls that his father had said it served as a charm for protection. She doesn't even glance at him after he decides to give it to her before going back to bed and expressing her happiness at having met him. When Yukito awakens the following morning, the restaurant is vacant as it normally is. As he can't find Laurel or Soluril anywhere, he goes outside to make sure they haven't shut down for the day. He finds Roy there, on the ground after receiving a severe thrashing. He immediately checks on his pal and queries, "What happened?" Roy says that the sisters were abducted and goes into great detail about the imperial system. When ordinary people are told to do their tasks, they do so. But residents of their community are not required to. Their lives are snatched against their will, and today was the sisters' last day. While he apologizes to Yukito, our youngster is unable to remain motionless. He runs to the capital with Klee by his side, and Alurel can't believe she has witnessed her sister's last breath. The guard pushes her to the ground and gets ready to slash her to death. But Yukito arrives in style. He strikes two soldiers one after the other during his first real adventure, even striking through an iron helmet. He is surrounded by every guard in the vicinity, yet he seems unfazed. Why are they treating them this way? He wonders as he stares at the dead Silver. The Imperial Guard captain then enters and explains that this is because the soldiers are terrified of dying, which is unhealthy because it will occur sooner or later and without cause. The captain takes his sword from his belt and stabs Yukito. In response to Laurel calling out his name, the captain immediately slices her while barely escaping injury. He crawls over to Laurel's side and asks, "Why? Why did that take place?" The moment he sees the jewelry he gave her, his father's advice flashes across his memory. Yet he will undoubtedly be saved by their god Matama. He picks up the phone pleading with Matama to save the girls with his last shred of hope. He begins chanting the same phrases his father used to pray to their god for the first time in his life. The necklace jewel suddenly jumped into the air, causing lightning to strike. A huge ball that resembled the sun appeared and cleared the sky as the heavens opened up. And out of it, a poor girl descended to earth who rushed right up on Yukito and gave him a joyful hug. When he eventually called and accepted her, Yukito was no longer breathing. She at last realized. The adorable Loli became a nightmare in an instant. She utilized all of her strength to bring about the root-like arms that drag every garden into the depths while also reviving Yukito. She jumps on his shoulders in front of the two sisters to display her affection, but Yukito is confused about who she is. That's when she introduces herself as Matama, his goddess. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for other exciting episodes of your favorite anime. Until next time, goodbye.